Hey, muy buenas noches, everyone. I hope everybody's been well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, and for everyone's time. Do know I'm humbled by it and I appreciate it a lot. Well, before getting into the story on hand today, I want to just briefly say, sorry I've been a little MIA this last couple days. But there's been a lot of say negative to deal with out here. There's a lot going on in Culiacan, but should have stayed out there. I'll just say that. But that's other things you guys know, medical and stuff. I've been trying to square it off, but nevertheless, thank you God, I'm still here. And just to get into a quick story today, today I want to touch on the Pili chemo from el monte flores, and just basically how everybody always asks, is there a rank level, is there somebody always stronger than the next, like, you know and per se there ain't. As a member, right, they're supposed to be equal, but it just never happens like that. A lot of factors play into play. For example, a lot, which other canales they're in touch with, they're showing love to, sharing with, or during doing dirt with, right, and sweeping it under the rug. It's just like I mentioned, is Satecato's world, right? So it goes with not what you do, or even if you follow suit to the dot, right? It goes who with which or how many other pilis they please, because that's what it's all about. We start off as camaradas, and we gotta always earn our stripes, right, little by little, and it goes with everything in life, right? Start earning a name, contacting the correct people, start doing the correct things, and what we consider right, and you reach a certain stage in things where everything's supposed to be equal, but it's still the same, right? They have to maintain with pleasing and doings when it comes to you being a member and bringing to the clica what you should, right? But that's the key word right there, should, because it has many barriers to it. But anyways, I want to touch a little bit on something that was going on in 2017, in the feds. And this Billy, I want to state first and foremost, throughout my whole time, the 23 years, 11 months, you constantly heard about him doing his thing with El Monte, right? And but not a lot of negative came, with his doings. His name always was in the mix, and El Monte's a big neighborhood, right? When I was in the system, you would always be surprised that anywhere you went. at least one camarada from El Monte, Flores would be there, right? And nevertheless, they're into the wiggles, right? I'll just leave it at that. But anyways, you know how it started off. It started off on the streets when he was out. Like I said, El Monte's big when it comes to reach, movement, whatever. I had mentioned to everyone, I had a celly that was a paisano, right? That was from Jalisco. He would eventually end up getting validated and being back there, right, in Pelican Bay with us for a while, and he was doing a lot of things out there, right? That's where he grew up at, and that's where he was doing his movement, right, in El Monte. He was a heavyweight, in his own world. But anyways, after Corcoran, when he was my celly, we all have different runs, different stories, avenues, whatever. And I don't know how he ran into chemo, right? But I'm assuming it's just by word of mouth, right? It's just this paisano has a lot of weight, and he moves it out your city, right? Or something to them effect. Because again, that's where his brother was at, his family, and that's where he would work out of. I'll just leave it like that, right? And they started doing things together, right? Tough things, to the point that instead of things always being looked at as oh, he's a member, and he don't have to go around in circles to figure out where to get material to work from. He has everything set. He's doing his thing. His neighborhood is well underneath them, and jealousy always comes into play, right? And as I mentioned before, Shy has never really been let go of El Monte, even though he's from Artesia, right? He's always had strong ties to El Monte. I don't want to put on the reasons why, but he has, I'll just say family ties, right? And at the time, Givy, right? He also had rights to El Monte. But again, there's a lot of guessing there, right? Going around in circles, trying to figure things out when Chemo had everything established. So he was doing his thing, but again, we go back to the levels, right? And when we talk about levels and you speak about Shy's, he's definitely up there, right? As high, respected, and I guess on the streets, Chemo didn't want to really allow them to work with him or to even be around where he was doing things, you know? And he was in his right, you know? There's nothing in the reglas that say, I gotta bring you in to do things with me. You gotta be able to produce, right? That should be one of the key reglas. You gotta be able to produce, not swing on somebody else, right? To gain, because that's politics. Nevertheless, for those that know about Chemo, He was out there with his neighborhood again. As I've heard, right, from close camaradas from El Monte, it was real liked, respected again. He wasn't known really to do shady stuff, right? Besides make feria and, make sure whatever needed to be organized in his neighborhood, he saw fit to it, through his homeboys. Which, if we really sat, and thought, excuse me, if they all thought like that and concentrate to where they were meant to be at instead of being greedy, and a lot of the infighting and politicking would stop, right? Anyways, again, not allowing Shy to do things or get in good with him ain't a reason why to politic against him, right? But as you guys know, within time, Federicos are always pushing, right? And even though a lot of people don't want to admit it, GP, neighborhoods on the streets, vatos that say, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. There's always somebody snitching, working with them for whatever reason, Some cats are gonna go do a county year, whatever, and they're sprung out, So to them, it's easier to go against their own neighborhood and whatever's out there and start working with the feds and just start informing them. There's a lot of telling, regardless, in what angle you want to look into it. But anyways, they came down on him. I'm not sure exactly what year this happened, but he went through that RICO thing, and it's how he ended up catching time, right, with camaradas from his neighborhood. And in this, from the time he got busted to the time where it was permitted with Sherman them to admit of things, right? A lot of time has happened, and it has not been an issue, right? But when Chemo did it, he was in court, and part of the deal, I guess, was for him to admit responsibility to whatever and admit who he was. And many already done it before him, right? He did it. And, do excuse me, I don't know exact time they got, but I know that, RICO cases always carry a grip of time, right? And he would end up hitting the feds. Going back to where I ran into this conversation and I heard it from a Pili and a homeboy, right? From El Montes. And he was having a lot of problems from the gate from when he hit the feds, right? And it was based on him not wanting to work with Shy on the streets. Share El Monte, per se. you know, Givy by this time had already pulled that disappearing act, right? To the SNY, whatever, protected wherever he went. And but Shia had came off from a power struggle on top, and just again, there is them levels, even though they're not spoken on, right? And unfortunately, they started attacking homies from El Monte. Not taking their career per se, but nevertheless nitpicking. For example, we heard that out in the USP by Wisconsin. Anyways, out that way, right? There was a couple homies from Monte that been there for a couple of years. They were doing their thing, riding for peelies in the feds, and of course, riding his peely on the streets when he was out there. And again, at least in my case, right? I am from El Monte, and again, it's a big respect, with a lot of respect in all aspects, right? Neighborhood. But I've always heard unless you really had it coming from from his neighborhood, he was just different when it came to being a Pili, right? So he had a lot of, you could say, love from his neighborhood, especially from the older battles that were in the feds, hearing everything, right? Because it's always greed, right? It's always stepping on your own. Like Giri. And, well, anyways, for those that don't know, Giri did with El Monte, well, even shy, right? If you sit and really think about it. But nevertheless, they were getting hard checadas for petty stuff. I'm talking about petty stuff that did not even carry a count of dominoes for those that don't know, right? How to count the dominoes as a discipline. In reality, it carried, they might have been able to work with a couple $100, right? Because it's petty, completely petty. Like one, I guess he rushed out to Halle. He wasn't even in the cell though. He didn't roll up his mattress. That called for him to get whacked. Hard, hard check. You know, or another one that, this one, it would have been a regulation, right? Which is, he went in the shower, came out the shower, stealing shower shoes, and put his shoes right outside the shower. Again, it's not one of them, acá y allá uh, things, right? Nevertheless, I know real well, right? Level 4s, 180s, even in them USPs. You go in the shower with shoes, you come out the shower with shoes. It's part of the reglas, but still you got whacked. Different camaradas for petty stuff they were getting reached out to in a form that, if you think about it as a camarada, when we're there, we always speak about that side, right? But if you put yourself in a camarada's shoes, right, that you've been doing things for years for them good, the only bad you done was your peelies in the feds now, so you want to start pedaling towards him now. And your peely was putting a shield on your own neighborhood on the street from having outsiders hurt it. And that's in reality, that's what it was happening. That's what he was trying to do. And you get stabbed over it. And basically, hey, vete a tu celda, do what we have to do, right? What is supposed to be done, which is patch ourselves and wait for you to be able to start programming again, right? That goes without saying, but tell me if that don't get in a negative way into a camarada's mind. Today I seen a lot of the recent stuff that people been talking on, and no doubt I agree. Certain individuals trying to excuse themselves, they're trash. No buts, no ifs, no way you paint it, right? But one thing you can't forget is there's a lot of vatos on that side for dumb stuff that are still killers. The reason why I'm doing this episode is because I recently heard that there's palabra that chemo is deciding to maybe hang the gloves, right? But it happened with his primo. For those that know his primos from El Monte, you know, he lost a couple papers. Went in the feds, a couple papers ain't nada. Trust me. And he lost his life. Even though all that with camaradas and all that got eventually clear, right? When I was there, I'm telling you, because Billy told me himself and a good camarada from El Monte, right? That all that got squared off and it was supposed to be left alone, and a lot of more Pilis got involved. And but here you have a Pili that thinks by antiquity he has more say so than others. Do you think the way they think they're gonna say, "Oh, ya estuvo, I let it go for good"? Nah, he sat and waited to strike again. But I'll touch on this story for a little bit more. Again, I know this ain't a negative thing to say, but since I do want to touch a little bit on something current, but that is out there on Shy, I thought it was important to put a backtrack, right? Again, it's understandable why he wants a monte flores, for those that don't know. But I guess I'll go back to saying that, right? You guys know them times where it was your neighborhood was a family thing. Abuelito, jefe, tú, kids, and it was all love. Is everyone surprised now? It's like, you know. But anyways, everyone, my mind ain't right for a lot of reasons I will share with you guys on the live. I hope it made sense. You know, the best option is love your neighborhood, love your homies, but always stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones. Buenas noches.